President Donald Trump has announced that the United States Navy will begin blockading the Strait of Hormuz. Good evening, I'm Kavin. We begin tonight with breaking and fast-moving developments that could reshape the course of a global energy crisis and push the world closer to the edge of a wider military confrontation. President Donald Trump has announced that the United States Navy will begin blockading the Strait of Hormuz. To understand the gravity of what has just unfolded, we must first look at where we are. Iran has effectively taken control over the Strait of Hormuz, a vital choke point for the global energy market, since the United States and Israel launched a military campaign against Iran on February 28th of this year. The Strait of Hormuz, a key trading corridor through which about 1/5 of the world's oil supply transits, has been effectively closed since the onset of this conflict in late February. The Hill. The economic consequences have been devastating. Fuel prices have surged, supply chains have broken down, and governments around the world have been scrambling for answers. Against that backdrop, the international community placed enormous hope in a rare face-to-face diplomatic summit held this weekend in Islamabad, Pakistan. Those hopes, as of Sunday, lie in ruins. The talks in Pakistan represented the most intensive diplomatic engagement between Washington and Tehran in nearly 5 decades. The U.S. delegation, led by Vice President JD Vance, met with Iranian and Pakistani negotiators for more than 21 hours during the rare face-to-face summit. The agenda was comprehensive and the stakes could not have been higher, but the two sides were fundamentally divided on the most critical issue of all. Trump said the talks had failed because, in his words, Iran is unwilling to give up its nuclear ambitions. According to sources briefed on the negotiations, some of the core disagreements centered on Iran's demand to control the Strait of Hormuz and its refusal to surrender its enriched uranium stockpile. CNBC Tehran, for its part, also sought payment of war reparations, a regional ceasefire, including in Lebanon, and the release of its frozen assets held abroad. Iran's foreign minister, for his part, described the talks differently. He said Iran had participated in good faith with the aim of ending ongoing hostilities, and that discussions had progressed to the brink of a potential memorandum of understanding. He added, bitterly, that just when an agreement seemed within reach, the U.S. introduced what he called maximalism and shifting goalposts. Then came the announcement that stunned the world. President Trump announced the U.S. is imposing a naval blockade on Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, several hours after the peace talks in Pakistan ended in failure. In a post on his Truth Social platform, the president wrote, and we quote directly, "Effective immediately, the United States Navy, the finest in the world, will begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz." He did not stop there. Trump also said the U.S. Navy will seek and interdict vessels that have paid a toll to Iran in order to pass through the strait, warning that no one who pays an illegal toll will have safe passage on the high seas. Axios. He also announced that U.S. forces will begin destroying the mines that Iran says it has laid throughout the strait. And in a stark escalation of rhetoric, Trump threatened to resume military conflict, writing that the U.S. military is fully locked and loaded and will finish up the little that is left of Iran. So what does the blockade actually mean in practice? U.S. Central Command said that the blockade would begin on Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time and will be enforced impartially against vessels of all nations entering or departing Iranian ports and coastal areas. Time crucially, however, CENTCOM clarified that ships not using Iranian ports would not be impeded, meaning the blockade targets Iran's economic lifelines specifically, not all maritime traffic through the strait. NPR Trump's blockade aims to flip the dynamic that Iran has created, denying Tehran the leverage it has used as a bargaining chip and preventing it from exporting its oil. As the president put it bluntly in an interview with Fox News, "We're not going to let Iran make money on selling oil to people that they like. It's going to be all or none, and that's the way it is." The international reaction has been swift and deeply divided. The BBC reported that the United Kingdom will not be assisting with the blockade. A spokesperson for the UK government said, "We continue to support freedom of navigation and the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, which is urgently needed to support the global economy and the cost of living back home." On Capitol Hill, there was skepticism even among the president's political opponents. Senator Mark Warner, a Democrat, told CNN, "I don't understand how blockading the strait is somehow going to push the Iranians into opening it. I don't see the connection there." Meanwhile, from Tehran, the response was defiant. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps warned Sunday that any military vessels attempting to approach the Strait of Hormuz will be dealt with harshly and decisively. CNN, an Iranian lawmaker who participated in the Islamabad negotiations, declared that the Strait of Hormuz will not be opened, NBC News, and that the world will experience a new form of management in the waterway. The economic consequences are already being felt. Oil prices topped $100 a barrel again on Sunday, as the blockade threatens to further disrupt the global economy and keep gas prices elevated. Brent crude, the international benchmark, was up 8%. CNN, the blockade threatens to exacerbate the economic crisis that has gripped global economies since the war broke out, and Iran began restricting access to the strait. CNBC analysts warn that a prolonged standoff in this waterway, through which 1/5 of the world's oil passes, could trigger a recession in import-dependent nations. Where does diplomacy go from here? Despite the collapse of the Islamabad talks, Vice President Vance did not entirely close the door. He left open the possibility of further negotiations, saying, "We leave here with a very simple proposal. We'll see if the Iranians accept it." Time. And yet, with a naval blockade now set to be enforced by Monday morning, with mines to be cleared by force, and with both Washington and Tehran speaking the language of military confrontation, the path back to the negotiating table has never looked more perilous. Analysts warn that a U.S. naval blockade could be viewed by Iran as an act of war, potentially triggering further military escalation. Time. The world is watching. The question tonight is not just whether diplomacy can survive, but whether this narrow strip of water, just 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, will become the flashpoint for a far larger and more catastrophic conflict.